Emma Brooks sat on the grass in her backyard, watching her little brother Danny chase fireflies in the warm September evening. The sun had just set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Their mother Linda was inside the kitchen, and Emma could smell dinner cooking through the open window. Danny laughed as he caught another firefly in his small hands, his eyes wide with wonder. Emma smiled at him. He was only 6 years old, and everything still amazed him. She was 8 now, practically grown up in her mind, and it was her job to look after him when they played outside. The sky suddenly changed. The natural purple of twilight became something else, something wrong. A bright electric purple light flooded the entire neighborhood, so intense that Emma had to cover her eyes. She heard Danny scream, and when she looked up, her heart stopped. A massive ship hung in the air above their house. It was nothing like the planes Emma had seen at the airport. This thing was enormous, bigger than their entire street, made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed along its surface, and a deep humming sound made Emma's chest vibrate. Before she could move, before she could even think to run, a beam of white light shot down from the ship. It surrounded Danny, lifting him off the ground. He screamed for their mother, his little arms reaching desperately toward Emma. Emma ran toward him, but another beam caught her. She felt herself rising into the air, her feet kicking uselessly. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The light was cold, and it made her whole body feel numb. Inside the house, Linda Brooks heard the screaming. She ran to the back door and saw something that would haunt her forever. Her children were floating in the air, trapped in beams of light rising toward an alien ship. She screamed their names and ran into the yard, but she was too late. The beams retracted, pulling Emma and Danny into the ship's belly. Linda collapsed on the grass, sobbing and screaming. Her husband Carl ran outside, his phone in his hand, already recording everything. Other neighbors were outside now, pointing at the sky, some crying, some frozen in shock. The alien ship wasn't just above their house. It covered the entire neighborhood. More beams shot down. Emma watched from inside the ship as other children were taken. She recognized Kevin Clark from her school, and little Sophie Turner from down the street. Sophie was only 3 years old, crying for her parents. Emma wanted to help her, but strange creatures had appeared around them. The aliens were tall, at least 7 feet, with bodies that looked like giant insects. They had hard, shiny shells that were dark green and black. Their heads had huge eyes that looked like they were made of 1,000 tiny eyes all stuck together. They made clicking sounds when they walked on their 6 legs, and their claws were made of something that looked like metal. One of the aliens approached Emma. It tilted its head, studying her like she was a bug in a jar. Emma felt anger replace her fear. She glared at the creature, her fists clenched. The alien made a clicking sound that might have been laughter, then moved on to examine the other children. Danny was crying hard now, his face red and covered in tears. Emma pushed through the crowd of terrified children and wrapped her arms around him. She had no idea where they were or what was going to happen, but she was still his big sister. She would protect him. The ship started to move. Through the transparent walls, Emma could see her neighborhood getting smaller. She saw her mother on the ground, her father holding a phone up, recording everything. She saw police cars arriving, their lights flashing. Then everything became too small to see, and the ship rose higher into the sky. Back on Earth, the emergency calls were flooding in. Not just from Riverside, Connecticut, but from 3 other nearby towns. 43 children had been taken in total. The footage that Carl Brooks and dozens of other parents had recorded was already spreading across the internet. Within an hour, the entire world knew that aliens existed, and they had stolen human children. President Victoria Hayes was in a meeting when her chief of staff burst into the room. The look on his face told her everything. She excused herself and was taken to the Situation Room in the White House basement. There, on a dozen screens, she watched the footage of the abduction. She watched children being ripped from their homes. She watched parents screaming helplessly. Victoria Hayes had been president for 3 years. She had dealt with economic crises, natural disasters, and political battles, but nothing had prepared her for this. She felt a cold fury building in her chest. These creatures, whatever they were, had made a terrible mistake. She looked at her military advisors. General Peter Cole stood at attention, waiting for orders. Next to him was Admiral Jack Morrison, commander of a program so secret that most of the government didn't know it existed. Morrison had a grim look on his face, but his eyes showed he was ready. The president's voice was calm but hard as steel. She told them to activate Operation Skyward Shield. She told them to prepare every weapon, every ship, every soldier. Then she told them to send a message to the aliens. The message was simple. Return the children unharmed within 12 hours, or Earth would come for them. Her advisors looked shocked. One of them asked if she was sure. The aliens obviously had advanced technology. They had ships that could travel through space. Starting a war with them could doom humanity. Victoria Hayes stood up. She looked each person in the room in the eye. She told them that she was absolutely sure. Those were human children. They were taken from their homes, from their families. If humanity backed down now, if they showed weakness, the aliens would come back. They would take more children. They would see Earth as a place they could raid whenever they wanted. She told them that 12 hours was generous. She told them that if those children weren't returned, she wanted the alien ship destroyed. She didn't care about the risk. She didn't care about the aliens' superior technology. She cared about 43 terrified children who needed their parents. The room went silent. Then Admiral Morrison nodded. He told the president that humanity had been preparing for this day for 30 years. They had weapons the aliens knew nothing about. They had ships hiding in orbit, disguised as satellites and space junk. Earth was not as defenseless as the aliens believed. The president ordered him to make ready. She would address the nation in 1 hour. She would tell the world what was happening, and she would make a promise. Earth would bring its children home no matter what the cost. In orbit above Earth, hidden among the countless satellites and debris, something began to change. Ships that had pretended to be broken machinery for decades suddenly came to life. Weapon systems that had waited patiently in the dark powered up. Humanity's secret fleet opened its eyes and prepared for war. The aliens had made their worst mistake. They had taken human children, and Earth was about to strike back. Admiral Jack Morrison floated through the corridor of Liberty 1, the orbital station that had been his home for the past 2 years. From the outside, the station looked like any other piece of space junk, just another failed satellite drifting in orbit. But inside, it was the command center for Earth's greatest secret. Morrison was 54 years old with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He had spent his entire adult life in the military, preparing for a day he hoped would never come. Now that day was here, and he felt a strange sense of calm. All the training, all the waiting, all the secret construction projects and hidden orbital facilities, it all came down to this moment. He entered the command center, where his staff was already assembled. Commander Lauren Phillips looked up from her console. She was 38, brilliant with tactics, and had a mind that could process battle scenarios faster than most computers. Lieutenant Greg Patterson stood at the weapons station, his hands already running checks on every system. Captain Nicole Price reviewed intelligence data, her face focused and determined. Morrison called them to attention. He told them the situation clearly. 43 children taken, 12 hours to return them. After that, they go to war. He asked if the fleet was ready. Patterson reported that all 12 heavy cruisers were online and armed. 36 destroyers had decloaked and were moving into position. The drone fighters, hundreds of them, were launching from hidden bays scattered across near-Earth space. Every weapon system showed green. They were ready. Phillips brought up a holographic display of the solar system. A red dot showed the alien ship's position. It was moving fast, heading toward the outer edge of the solar system. In approximately 6 hours, it would reach a point where it could jump to faster-than-light travel. If it escaped, the children would be lost forever. Morrison studied the display. He asked Price what intelligence had learned about the aliens. She pulled up data that made everyone in the room angry. The aliens were called the Zalthari. They were researchers, scientists who traveled the galaxy studying primitive species. They saw humans as nothing more than interesting animals to experiment on. Price explained that the Zalthari had been watching Earth for over 200 years. They had detailed files on human biology, culture, and technology. Or at least they thought they did. Their most recent data was 30 years old. They had no idea that humanity had been building a space fleet. The Zalthari believed Earth was helpless. They believed humans had barely made it to their own moon and could never threaten a starship. This arrogance would cost them everything. Morrison asked about the alien ship's capabilities. Patterson brought up a technical analysis. The mothership was 3 kilometers long, powered by something the scientists called a quantum fusion core. It had shields that could absorb massive amounts of energy. Its weapons included plasma cannons and particle beams. On paper, it was more advanced than anything humanity had built. But humanity had advantages the aliens didn't expect. Morrison asked Patterson about their special weapons. The lieutenant smiled. He explained that while the aliens had superior energy technology, humans had focused on kinetic weapons. The railguns on the heavy cruisers could fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The aliens' shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not chunks of tungsten moving at a fraction of light speed. Phillips added that they also had electromagnetic pulse weapons. The aliens relied heavily on their computers and electronic systems. A strong enough pulse could disable their ship entirely, and then there were the quantum disruption missiles, humanity's most secret weapon. These missiles could tear apart the bonds between molecules. They were devastating and nearly impossible to defend against. Morrison nodded. He told his staff to begin moving the fleet into position. They needed to surround the alien ship before it could jump away. Phillips began coordinating the movement, sending encrypted orders to every ship in the fleet. On Earth, in a secret facility beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Henry Scott watched the same displays. He was the director of advanced weapons research, the man responsible for creating most of the technology the fleet now carried. He had spent decades studying crashed alien probes and recovered materials, reverse engineering technology that humanity wasn't supposed to have for centuries. Scott opened a communication channel to Morrison. He provided detailed scans of the Zalthari ship's hull composition. He highlighted weak points, areas where their armor was thinner. He also warned that the ship likely had automated defense systems that would activate if attacked. The fleet needed to strike hard and fast, overwhelming those defenses before they could adapt. Morrison thanked him and closed the channel. He looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 10 hours until the deadline. But they couldn't wait that long. If the alien ship reached the jump point, the children would be gone forever. He made his decision. They would send the ultimatum now and give the aliens 1 hour to respond. If the Zalthari refused or if they tried to run, the fleet would attack immediately. President Hayes appeared on the main screen. She had just finished addressing the nation. Morrison could see the determination in her eyes. She asked if he was ready. He told her they were. She gave him full authorization to engage if the aliens refused their demands. The message was sent. It reached the Zalthari ship in seconds, translated by computers into their language. Morrison imagined the alien commander reading it, probably laughing at the primitive humans making demands. Let them laugh. They would learn soon enough. Aboard the mothership, researcher Vecnor did exactly that. He read the human message and clicked his mandibles in amusement. The humans were demanding the return of the specimens. They were threatening military action. It was absurd. These creatures had barely left their own planet. They had no fleet, no weapons that could threaten a Zalthari research vessel. Vecnor composed a response. He explained that under Galactic Concordat law, the Zalthari had every right to collect specimens from primitive worlds. The humans had no legal standing to object. He suggested they accept the situation and be grateful the Zalthari hadn't taken more. He sent the message and went back to preparing the research lab. The human juveniles would provide fascinating data. Their brains showed unusual patterns, and Vecnor was eager to begin experiments. Morrison read the alien's response. His face remained calm, but everyone in the command center could see the anger in his eyes. He asked Patterson how long until they were in position. The lieutenant checked his screens. 20 minutes, Morrison gave the order. Decloak the fleet. Let the aliens see what they're facing. Across near-Earth space, hundreds of vessels dropped their camouflage. Satellites that had floated dead in orbit for years suddenly lit up with power. Pieces of space junk revealed themselves as warships. Destroyed probe fragments assembled themselves into fighter craft. The EDS Valiant, Morrison's flagship, led the formation. It was a heavy cruiser, 800 meters long, bristling with weapons. Its hull was painted dark gray, designed to be invisible against the void of space. But now its running lights blazed and its weapons were armed and ready. On the Zalthari ship, alarms began screaming. Vecnor rushed to the command deck. His second-in-command was staring at the scanner displays in disbelief. The primitive planet had a fleet, a massive fleet, and it was surrounding them. Vecnor felt something he had never experienced in his 40 years of research: fear. He had made a terrible error in judgment. These humans were not primitive. They had hidden their true capabilities, and now they had him trapped. He tried to activate the jump drive, but it wouldn't engage. Something was blocking it. Some kind of field the humans were generating. He was stuck here with dozens of warships closing in. Morrison watched the alien ship on his screens. He saw them trying to jump and failing. Good. Phillips had deployed the quantum field disruptors exactly as planned. He opened a final communication channel to the Zalthari. His voice was cold and clear. He told them they had one chance. Return the children immediately unharmed and surrender their ship for inspection. Refuse, and the fleet would open fire. Vecnor stared at the message. He had two choices: surrender to primitives and face disgrace when he returned home, or fight and hope his ship's superior technology could defeat the human fleet. His pride made the choice for him. He gave the order to charge weapons and prepare for battle. The Zalthari would not surrender to inferior creatures. Morrison saw the alien ship's weapons powering up. He felt a grim satisfaction. The aliens had chosen war. He gave Patterson the order: fire everything. The Zalthari mothership fired first. Brilliant blue beams of concentrated plasma erupted from its weapons arrays, crossing the void of space in an instant. The destroyer EDS Ranger tried to evade, but the beam caught it directly. The ship's shields flared bright white, held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. The beam cut through the hull like a knife through paper. The Ranger exploded in a flash of white light. Another plasma beam struck the destroyer EDS Falcon. This time the shields held longer, but the beam was too powerful. The Falcon broke apart, its crew compartment spinning away into the darkness. 38 men and women died in those first 5 seconds of combat. Morrison felt each loss like a knife to his chest, but he couldn't afford to grieve. Not yet. He watched as the cruiser EDS Thunderbolt took a glancing hit. Its port side armor melted under the plasma, but the ship stayed intact. They were lucky. Patterson didn't hesitate. The moment the aliens fired, he executed Morrison's order. Every human ship opened up with everything they had. The railgun spoke first. These weapons used electromagnetic force to accelerate dense metal slugs to enormous speeds. The heavy cruisers fired projectiles the size of cars. The destroyers fired smaller rounds, but hundreds of them. The alien shields lit up as the first railgun rounds hit. The Zalthari had never faced kinetic weapons at this scale. Their shields were designed to disperse energy, but solid matter was different. The shields slowed the projectiles but couldn't stop them completely. Several rounds punched through, slamming into the mothership's hull. Massive craters appeared in the alien armor. Phillips coordinated the assault with cold precision. She had studied every engagement scenario 1,000 times in simulations. The fleet moved in a carefully choreographed dance, each ship supporting the others, covering blind spots, creating crossfire patterns that gave the aliens no safe direction to turn. The Zalthari returned fire desperately. Another beam found the destroyer EDS Lightning. The ship tried to rotate and present its strongest shields, but it was too slow. The beam carved through the engine section. Internal explosions rippled through the hull. 30 more people died. But for every human ship damaged, the alien mothership took dozens of hits. The drone fighters swarmed around it like angry bees. Each drone was small, barely 10 meters long, but they were fast and armed with missiles. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the mothership from every direction. The Zalthari point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Explosions blossomed across the alien hull. Armor plates were blown away. Secondary explosions erupted as missile damage penetrated to internal systems. The mothership shuddered under the assault. Inside the ship, the children felt the impacts. Emma held Danny tight as the floor beneath them shook. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, they heard alien voices clicking frantically. Some of the children were screaming. Sophie Turner cried for her mother. Kevin Clark, the 10-year-old boy from Emma's school, noticed something. The aliens guarding them had left. They had run off when the battle started, probably needed elsewhere on the ship. He whispered to Emma, pointing at the door. It was open. Emma understood immediately. This might be their only chance. She stood up, still holding Danny's hand, and told the other children to stay together. Kevin took Sophie in his arms. The little girl was too scared to walk on her own. They moved through the doorway into a corridor that looked like something from a nightmare. The walls were made of dark metal with organic curves like they were inside some giant insect. Strange lights pulsed along the ceiling. The air smelled wrong, like chemicals and something else Emma couldn't identify. An explosion somewhere above them made the corridor tilt. Emma fell against the wall, barely keeping her feet. Danny was crying again, but she pulled him along. They had to find somewhere safe, somewhere away from the battle. Outside the ship, Patterson prepared the next wave of attacks. The electromagnetic pulse weapons were charged and ready. He gave the order, and 3 cruisers fired simultaneously. Invisible waves of electromagnetic energy washed over the Zalthari mothership. The effect was immediate and devastating. The alien shields collapsed entirely. Their weapons stopped firing. The mothership went dark, only emergency lights remaining. The pulse had fried most of their electronic systems. The Zalthari were dead in the water. Morrison saw his chance. He ordered all ships to cease fire. They had the aliens helpless. Now came the dangerous part. They had to board that ship and find the children before the Zalthari could recover or, worse, decide to kill their captives rather than lose them. Captain Nicole Price had been waiting for this moment. She commanded the Marine boarding teams, 300 soldiers in powered armor ready to storm the alien ship. Price was 35 years old, a career Marine who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in the fleet. She believed in the mission with her whole heart. Bring those children home. Her assault shuttles launched from the cruiser EDS Guardian, 6 shuttles, 50 Marines each, racing toward the crippled mothership. The shuttles were heavily armored and carried breaching charges designed to cut through starship hulls. The Zalthari saw them coming. Even with most systems down, they still had backup weapons. Plasma turrets operating on independent power sources opened fire. One shuttle took a direct hit and exploded. 50 Marines died instantly. Price felt rage burn through her, but she focused it into cold determination. Her shuttle reached the alien hull. The breaching charges detonated, cutting a perfect circle in the metal. Her team went through the hole before the metal even finished glowing. The interior of the ship was chaos. Zalthari warriors, each over 7 feet tall with 4 arms and armored shells, waited for them. The aliens had plasma rifles and the advantage of knowing their own ship's layout. The battle in the corridors was brutal. The Marines' armor protected them from most plasma shots, but direct hits could still penetrate. Sergeant Amy Rodriguez led her squad around a corner and ran straight into 5 Zalthari. The aliens opened fire immediately. Rodriguez dove behind a bulkhead as plasma burned the air where she had been standing. Private Chris Murphy took a hit to his shoulder. His armor held, but the impact knocked him down. Corporal Lisa Grant pulled him to cover while Rodriguez threw a grenade. The explosion in the confined space was deafening. 2 of the aliens went down. The other 3 charged forward, their forearms wielding both rifles and bladed weapons. Rodriguez met them head-on, her powered armor giving her the strength to match the larger aliens. She crushed one alien's rifle with her armored fist, then drove her combat knife into the gap between its shell plates. The alien clicked in pain and collapsed. Grant shot another point blank with her plasma rifle. The third alien slashed at Rodriguez with a blade that looked like a curved sword. The blade scraped across her armor, leaving a deep gouge but not penetrating. Rodriguez grabbed the alien's sword arm and twisted. The powered armor's servos whined as they amplified her strength. The alien's arm broke with a crack like snapping wood. She finished it with a shot to the head. Captain Price monitored the progress of all her teams. They were taking casualties, but they were advancing. The Zalthari fought desperately, but human soldiers were fighting for something more important than their own lives. They were fighting for children. Price's scanner picked up something. A large open area 3 decks down. Massive electromagnetic signatures. That had to be where the children were being held. She redirected all teams toward that location. Emma heard the sounds of fighting getting closer. The explosions, the strange sounds of alien weapons, the shouts in English. That last part made her heart jump. Those were human voices. Soldiers. They were coming to rescue them. She found a small room off the corridor, what looked like some kind of storage area. She gathered all 43 children inside. She told them to be quiet and stay down. If the soldiers were fighting the aliens, the last thing they needed was children running around in the crossfire. Kevin helped her keep the younger ones calm. He made them sit in a circle and held Sophie, who had finally stopped crying. The children waited, listening to the battle rage around them, praying the human soldiers would find them before the aliens did. Rodriguez and her squad reached the detention area first. She saw the large room, saw the alien technology but no children. Her heart sank. Had they been moved? Had they been killed? Then she saw the small doorway slightly open and heard whispers. She approached carefully and looked inside. 43 pairs of eyes stared back at her. 43 terrified but alive children. Rodriguez felt tears in her eyes behind her helmet. She keyed her radio and reported to Price. All children found. All alive. Emma saw the soldier and knew they were saved. She stood up slowly, helping Danny to his feet. The soldier's armor was scary-looking, all dark metal and weapons, but the voice that came through the speaker was gentle and kind. Rodriguez told them everything would be okay. She told them they were going home. Getting the children off the dying alien ship was going to be the hardest part. Captain Price studied the schematics that her team had downloaded from the Zalthari computers. The mothership was breaking apart from the inside. The railgun impacts had created structural damage throughout the vessel. The electromagnetic pulse had shut down critical systems, including the ones that kept the ship's atmosphere contained. Price had maybe 30 minutes before sections of the ship started losing air. They needed to move fast. She ordered 3 assault shuttles to dock at different points along the hull, creating multiple extraction routes in case one got blocked. Rodriguez organized the children into groups. The older ones, like Emma and Kevin, would help carry the younger ones. She assigned each child to a Marine. Her squad would form a protective corridor around them, shields raised, ready to absorb any fire from Zalthari who might try to stop them. The journey to the nearest docking point required them to cross 5 corridors and climb 2 decks. In normal circumstances, it would take 10 minutes. But this ship was far from normal now. Fires burned in some sections. Others had already lost atmosphere and been sealed behind emergency bulkheads. They would have to find alternate routes. They moved out. Rodriguez took point, her rifle ready. Emma walked behind her, holding Danny's hand with her right and helping a 5-year-old boy named Peter with her left. Kevin carried Sophie, who clung to him like a baby monkey. The other children followed in a long line, each paired with a Marine. They made it through the first corridor without incident. The second corridor was blocked by debris from a collapsed ceiling. Rodriguez cursed and checked her map. There was another route, but it would take them deeper into the ship before they could turn back toward the docking point. Above them, Admiral Morrison watched the rescue operation on his screens. He saw the Marines' positions, the shuttle locations, and the rapidly deteriorating condition of the alien ship. Phillips warned him that the mothership's power core was becoming unstable. If it went critical, the explosion would destroy everything within 10 kilometers. Morrison ordered the fleet to pull back to a safe distance, but he kept the shuttles in position. They wouldn't leave without those children. Patterson had his weapons locked on the mothership, ready to destroy it the moment the last shuttle cleared. But not 1 second before. Inside the ship, Emma and the others moved through corridors that were getting hotter. The air tasted like burning metal. Danny was breathing hard and Emma worried he might panic. She squeezed his hand and told him to stay strong. They were almost safe. They turned a corner and ran straight into a group of Zalthari warriors. There were 8 of them, armed and desperate. These aliens knew their ship was dying. They knew they would likely die here, but they weren't going to let the humans take their specimens without a fight. The lead Zalthari raised its plasma rifle. Rodriguez moved faster. She fired 3 shots, dropping the alien before it could pull the trigger. The other Marines opened fire simultaneously. The corridor lit up with plasma bolts going in both directions. Grant took a hit to her chest plate. The plasma burned through her armor and she went down screaming. Murphy grabbed her and pulled her behind cover while still firing with his other hand. Rodriguez charged forward, using her armor's strength to bulldoze through the alien line. Emma pushed the children back, away from the fighting. She saw one of the Zalthari trying to flank around the Marines. It was coming toward the children, its rifle raised. Without thinking, Emma grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and threw it as hard as she could. The metal hit the alien in its compound eyes. It wasn't enough to hurt it, but it made the creature flinch. That split-second distraction was all Rodriguez needed. She put 3 rounds into the alien's center mass. It collapsed. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds, but it felt like hours. When it was over, 6 Zalthari lay dead. Grant was injured but alive, and the Marines had formed a tighter protective circle around the children. Rodriguez looked at Emma with new respect. The 8-year-old girl had just helped save them all. Rodriguez told her she was brave. Emma just nodded. She didn't feel brave. She felt terrified and wanted to go home. They moved faster now. The ship was shaking constantly. Small explosions echoed through the corridors. They climbed up 2 decks using an emergency shaft, the Marines lifting the children one by one. Peter started crying from exhaustion, but Emma encouraged him to keep going. Finally, they saw the docking port. One of the assault shuttles was there, its bay doors open, Marines waving them forward. Rodriguez's team ran for it, pushing the children ahead of them. But researcher Vecnor had other plans. He had watched his ship torn apart by primitives. He had seen his crew slaughtered. His life's work was ruined. If he was going to die here, he would at least deny the humans their victory. Vecnor and 12 of his personal guard appeared from a side corridor, blocking the path to the shuttle. The Zalthari researcher was larger than the warriors, his shell scarred from decades of dangerous fieldwork. He held a massive plasma cannon, a weapon usually mounted on vehicles. He aimed it at the children and clicked out a demand in his language. The Marines would surrender, or he would kill every human juvenile. Rodriguez understood enough from her suit's translator. She stepped forward, positioning herself between Vecnor and the children. She told her squad to get the kids on the shuttle. She would handle this. The other Marines hesitated, but they knew she was right. Grant, despite her injury, began moving children toward the shuttle. Kevin ran with Sophie. Peter followed Emma. One by one, the children disappeared into the safety of the shuttle. Vecnor saw what was happening and roared in rage. He tried to aim his cannon past Rodriguez, but she matched his movement, always staying between him and the children. He could kill her easily, but that wouldn't get him what he wanted. Emma was almost to the shuttle when she realized what was happening. That soldier was going to die to save them. The woman in the armor was sacrificing herself so the children could escape. Emma couldn't let that happen. The shuttle had external floodlights, powerful ones used for night operations. Emma saw the controls just inside the door. She had watched her dad use spotlights when they went camping. This couldn't be that different. She slapped the control. Every spotlight on the shuttle blazed to life, aimed directly at Vecnor and his guards. The Zalthari compound eyes were extremely sensitive to light. The sudden glare was like staring into the sun. Vecnor screamed and stumbled backward, temporarily blinded. Rodriguez didn't waste the opportunity. She lunged forward and drove her combat knife into the joint where Vecnor's head met his shell. The researcher dropped his cannon and fell. His guards, still blind from the lights, fired wildly. Rodriguez ducked and rolled, coming up behind them. She shot 4 before they could recover their vision. The remaining guards charged her. Rodriguez met them head-on. Her armor was dented and scorched, her left arm barely functional from an earlier hit she hadn't reported. But she fought with the fury of someone who had sworn to protect children and meant it. She took down 3 more guards in close combat. One of them managed to stab her in the side, finding a gap in her armor. Rodriguez felt the blade penetrate, felt the burning pain. She ignored it and snapped the alien's arm, then finished it with her sidearm. The last guards tried to run. Rodriguez shot them in the back. She didn't care about honor or fair fighting. These creatures had kidnapped children. They deserved no mercy. She staggered to the shuttle. Her suit's medical systems were screaming warnings about internal bleeding. She had minutes at best. But every child was aboard. Every single one. She had done her job. Emma helped pull Rodriguez into the shuttle. The sergeant collapsed on the deck, her armor's seals automatically trying to close the wound in her side. The shuttle pilot didn't wait. The doors slammed shut, and the craft detached from the dying mothership. 2 more shuttles launched simultaneously from different docking points, carrying the rest of Price's Marines. Not everyone made it. 47 Marines died on that ship, fighting to save children they had never met. But they had succeeded. All 43 children were safe. The shuttles raced toward the Valiant. Behind them, the Zalthari mothership was coming apart. Its power core was in meltdown. Morrison watched the countdown. 5 minutes until critical failure. He opened a channel to all ships. As soon as the last shuttle docked, they would destroy the mothership. He wouldn't let it explode on its own and possibly hurt someone. He would end it cleanly. The shuttles reached the Valiant. The children were rushed to the medical bay where Dr. Susan Cole and her team were waiting. Cole examined each child carefully. They were traumatized and scared, but physically unharmed. The Zalthari hadn't had time to begin their experiments. Rodriguez was taken to surgery immediately. Her injuries were serious, but Cole's team worked miracles. The sergeant would survive. She would have scars, but she would live to receive the medal she had earned. Morrison received confirmation that everyone was aboard. He looked at the dying alien ship on his screen. It had killed over 100 of his people. It had terrorized 43 children. It represented a species that saw humans as nothing more than laboratory animals. He gave Patterson the order. The Valiant's main cannon had been charging during the entire rescue operation. The EDS Valiant entered Earth orbit 12 hours after the battle. The entire planet was watching. Every news station, every streaming service, every phone and computer screen showed the footage. The warship carrying 43 rescued children home. Emma Brooks stood at a window in the medical bay looking down at the blue and white planet below. She held Danny's hand. Her little brother had finally stopped crying and was staring in wonder at their home from space. They were going back. They were safe. Dr. Cole had examined both of them thoroughly. Aside from some bruises and emotional trauma, they were fine. All the children were fine. The Zalthari hadn't hurt them physically. Whatever experiments they had planned would never happen now. President Victoria Hayes waited at Edwards Air Force Base in California. She stood on the runway with 43 sets of parents. Linda and Carl Brooks were there, holding each other, crying and praying. Every parent wore the same expression of desperate hope mixed with fear. They had seen the battle footage. They knew their children were alive, but they wouldn't truly believe it until they held them again. The Valiant couldn't land, but it launched shuttles. 3 of them descended through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing from friction. Emma watched Earth get bigger and bigger through the window. She saw clouds, then land, then buildings. The shuttle shook as it slowed, and then, with a gentle bump, touched down. The doors opened. Bright California sunlight flooded in. Emma blinked against the glare and then saw her mother running across the tarmac. She let go of Danny's hand and ran too. Linda Brooks caught her daughter and fell to her knees, sobbing and holding Emma so tight it hurt. Emma didn't care. She buried her face in her mother's shoulder and cried. All around them, other families reunited. Carl Brooks grabbed Danny and lifted him into the air, laughing and crying at the same time. Kevin Clark's parents held him between them, refusing to let go. Sophie Turner's mother sat on the ground, rocking her 3-year-old daughter and whispering that everything was okay now. President Hayes watched it all with tears streaming down her face. She had made the hardest decision of her life when she authorized the attack. She had risked war with an unknown alien species. She had sent people to die. But seeing these families together again, she knew it had been right. She approached the families after giving them time together. She spoke to each child, thanking them for their courage. She spoke to the parents, sharing their relief. And she made them a promise. Earth would never let this happen again, but the story was far from over. While the families celebrated, Admiral Morrison and his intelligence team were learning things that changed everything. They had recovered data from the Zalthari ship before destroying it. Huge amounts of data about the aliens, their technology, and their place in the larger galaxy. Captain Price, her arm in a sling from injuries sustained during the boarding, reviewed the data with Morrison in the Valiant's briefing room. What they found was disturbing. The Zalthari were not alone. They were part of something called the Galactic Concordat, a coalition of dozens of alien species. The Concordat had laws and rules, but those laws only applied to species they considered civilized. Primitive worlds, planets that hadn't developed faster than light travel, had no rights. The Concordat could study them, take samples, even abduct individuals for research. It was all legal under their system. Earth had been catalogued as a primitive world. The Zalthari had files on humanity going back over 200 years. They had observed human civilization, studied human biology, and waited for the right time to collect specimens. They thought they could take children with no consequences because humans couldn't stop them. Morrison read through the files with growing anger. The Zalthari weren't unique. Dozens of other species had similar research programs. Earth had been lucky that the Zalthari came first. They were scientists, not conquerors. Other species might have been worse. He brought the information to President Hayes. She convened an emergency session of the United Nations. Every world leader needed to see this. Humanity's first contact with alien life had revealed a galaxy that saw them as primitives with no rights. The meeting in New York was tense. Representatives from every nation watched as Morrison presented the evidence. Some people argued for caution. They said humanity should hide, Keep the fleet secret. Avoid attracting attention from dangerous aliens. Others, including President Hayes, argued the opposite. The secret was already out. The Concordat would know about the battle. They would investigate. Hiding would make Earth look weak. Instead, humanity needed to send a clear message. We are not primitives. We are not victims. We are dangerous and we will defend ourselves. The debate lasted for hours, but eventually everyone agreed. Earth would reach out to the Galactic Concordat on its own terms. Dr. Henry Scott was given a new assignment. Using Zalthari communication technology recovered from the mothership, he would build a transmitter powerful enough to send a message to Concordat space. It took 3 weeks. Scott worked around the clock, reverse engineering alien technology that was centuries ahead of human science. But he had always been good at this. He had spent his career studying alien devices. This was just one more puzzle to solve. The transmitter was built in orbit, assembled by the same engineers who had constructed the secret fleet. It was massive, drawing power from a dedicated fusion reactor. When it activated, every radio telescope on Earth detected it. The message it sent would reach Concordat space in approximately 2 months, traveling faster than light through subspace channels the Zalthari had used. Admiral Morrison recorded the message himself. President Hayes had offered to do it, but Morrison insisted. He was the fleet commander. He had fought the battle. This message needed to come from someone who had proven they could back up their words with action. Morrison sat in front of the camera in his dress uniform. His gray hair was neatly combed, his metals polished. But his eyes were hard. He looked like what he was, a warrior who had killed and would kill again if necessary. The message included footage from the battle. It showed the Zalthari mothership firing first, killing human ships. It showed the railgun barrage, the boarding action, the children being rescued. It showed the mothership being cut in half by the Valiant's main cannon. Nothing was hidden. Morrison wanted the Concordat to see exactly what happened. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, but the anger underneath was clear. He explained that the Zalthari had abducted 43 human children. He explained that Earth had given them a chance to return those children peacefully. He explained that the aliens had refused and chosen to fight. Morrison made it clear that humanity was not seeking conflict. Earth would be happy to establish peaceful relations with other species. But those relations would be between equals. Humanity would not accept being classified as a primitive species with no rights. Any attempt to abduct, harm, or experiment on humans would be treated as an act of war. He talked about Earth's history. He didn't hide the violence, the wars, the terrible things humans had done to each other. But he also talked about how humanity had learned, grown, and built a civilization that valued life and freedom. He explained that humans were capable of great kindness and great cruelty, often in the same individual. The warning he delivered was simple. Do not mistake human restraint for weakness. Do not assume that because Earth had only recently developed space travel, it was helpless. Humanity had prepared for this day. The fleet that destroyed the Zalthari mothership was just the beginning. Earth was building more ships, better weapons, stronger defenses. Morrison ended the message with words that would become famous across the galaxy. He looked directly into the camera and said that humans were the product of a dangerous world. They had survived ice ages and plagues, wars, and disasters. They had reached the top of their planet's food chain not because they were the biggest or strongest, but because they were smart, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. He told the Concordat that Earth wanted peace, but it was prepared for war. Any species that approached Earth would be welcome if they came in friendship. But any species that tried to harm humanity, especially human children, would learn the same lesson the Zalthari did. There would be no mercy. There would be no second chances. There would only be destruction. The message was sent. It would take months to reach its destination, months more for any response. In the meantime, Earth prepared. The secret fleet was secret no longer. Construction accelerated on new ships. The railgun technology proved so effective that it became standard on every vessel. Scientists studied the Zalthari technology, learning new techniques that would help humanity catch up to the rest of the galaxy. Emma Brooks went back to school. Her classmates treated her like a celebrity, which she hated. She just wanted to be normal again. But the nightmares wouldn't stop. She kept dreaming about the alien ship, the clicking sounds, the fear. Her parents got her a therapist. Dr. Karen White specialized in childhood trauma. She worked with Emma twice a week, helping her process what had happened. Slowly, the nightmares became less frequent. Emma started to smile again. One day, Emma asked her mother if the aliens would come back. Linda didn't know what to say. She wanted to promise that her daughter was safe, that nothing would ever hurt her again.